Welcome back to a new episode of Weekly Takes. Today we've got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I did talk about this at the end of last week's episode. However, I have seen the movie now. I actually went Wednesday morning to the very first available showing I could. And of course I saw it in Screen X, which is, in my opinion, the ultimate way to see a movie. I've always liked IMAX. It is really cool to have the huge screen, the big open frame, and of course the powerful sound system is great too. However, I saw Top Gun Maverick in Screen X last year, first time seeing a movie in that format, and it was absolutely fantastic to have the peripheral vision to immerse you into the image or into the scene. You felt like you were in the cockpit of the jet with Tom Cruise. You felt like you were sweeping over the top of mountains. So that was a really great experience. I later saw the movie in IMAX and in regular screen. It was great to see it in all the different ways, but Screen X I felt was definitely the superior way to be pulled into an action sequence. And Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is the same exact thing. The way they used it was absolutely fantastic. There were, if you were in a closed quarters fight scene in an outdoor, between two buildings, wherever, you saw the buildings on either side of you, and it helped you feel in the frame. It helped you feel like you were in the scene. And they would do the same thing with like car chases. You would see the other vehicles or the buildings passing by, things like that. Really great format. But enough about Screen X. As awesome as it is, the movie itself is even better, probably regardless of what format you see it in. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is the movie of the year. And if there is a single movie you see this year, this should be that movie. Mission Impossible Fallout, a couple years back, I believe that was 2019, kind of raised the bar for what a action epic should be. I feel like that's kind of a new subgenre that Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie have pioneered, and really no one else has stepped into that frame. The way that they have elevated not just the action sequences, but the character moments and the thriller aspect of Mission Impossible, it's always been there. This is by far the best overall film series, in my opinion, in all of cinema and probably for all time. But since Fallout, and now with Dead Reckoning, they keep doing this thing where the thrill of the story, the twists and turns behind it, and the character advancement that's pushing the action is really what's taking this a step further. The action sequences are fantastic. You have these crazy stunts that Tom Cruise is pulling off, these really well-crafted scenarios that obviously draw you into the whole thing. But the storyline that's playing out, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's extremely relevant to today, and it keeps you guessing at every twist and turn, literally until the words "End Part 1" come up on the screen. So you really anticipate what's coming next. You're not left on necessarily a cliffhanger, but you are left wondering, where do they go from here? There's a lot that has not been resolved, and there's a lot about the story, like you just still don't know what's going on after almost 3 hours, but in a good way. It's so meticulously, the back and forth between characters and why they're doing what they're doing, their motivations, and how they're going to end up at the end of this entire thing is still up in the air. It's fantastic, and like I said, it drives the action forward. As you can tell, I have a lot of energy for this one. Mission Impossible is by far my favorite movie series, and Tom Cruise is by far my favorite actor. So to constantly see this series excel at what it's doing it feels great. As for sales, the movie did open to $80 million over the 5-day period, which, there's a lot being made of this. They're saying it's coming in below expectations. However, over at Paramount, they are in fact saying that it's tracking ahead of Fallout by 3% domestically for the first 5 days. So that's really good, because Fallout was easily the biggest film in the franchise so far. And overseas, in what they call like-for-like markets, they're currently 15% ahead of Fallout, and that's not even counting China. And Japan doesn't even open for like another week. And Japan is a huge Tom Cruise market, and it's big for Mission Impossible. So I feel like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is going to do just fine. I don't think people should worry about the box office. This is a franchise that has really good legs. It sells for a continued period. And considering how they handled Top Gun Maverick last year, I actually really think they're going to give it a good run in theaters. There may even be like a second launch in IMAX later this year when Oppenheimer finishes up its run. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about collecting Pokemon. So I collect the Pokemon TCG a little less now than I used to. I'm a little more specific. I have an entire collection of Pikachu cards from across all the different eras of Pokemon. I have another collection I started a couple years ago where it's basically, so far, it's all the holo cards from the original few sets back in the 90s in Japanese. But anyways, for those of you who are not massive Pokemon fans or, avid collectors yourself, I won't go too hardcore on this, but basically, kind of like baseball cards or football cards or any other collectible, sealed products are considered to be more valuable, at least in general. There can be individual cards or individual items that are, of course, very valuable themselves, and of course it's nice to actually collect them, go through, find the things you want, and add it to your folder or to your framed collection, whatever it is. Get things graded. But when we're talking vintage packs of cards, sometimes having having a sealed product that hasn't been opened, nobody's seen what's inside, it's still all closed up from almost 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is. It's a mystery what's inside, and that is oftentimes more valuable, especially for something like a collectible card game. And a friend of mine within the community online that I'm part-time a part of, I suppose. I'm not very good about staying in touch and participating in the community, I suppose. Discord's not my favorite thing ever. But anyways, their channel is called The Ditwicks, and I will mention them in the description. But they do a lot of Pokemon Go. They open Pokemon trading cards and some of the stuff I used to do. But they recently were at a convention, and they received, I think through some sort of a contest, an unopened Pokemon fossil pack from the 90s. And I saw them post it on Instagram and talk about potentially opening it for a video. And I was like, no, don't do it. And, somebody can do whatever makes them happy, especially with a collectible, Pokemon trading cards. There's something really nice about opening up that product and flipping through and seeing all the old cards. That in itself has a lot of value. And if you were collecting individual cards, it might be really cool as well. And who knows, maybe there's something really rare in there. One of those old school rare holos. Those are always awesome to pull. However, there is, in my opinion, there's a lot of influencers and YouTubers out there who have started opening a lot of the old product. A lot of old booster boxes, a lot of old booster packs, and doing it for, views, of course. Can't blame them there. But doing it for their YouTube channel and creating content with it, of course they would, that makes sense. But at the same time, there's something to be said about just, preserving things. And especially for small-time content creators, people who aren't making a living yet off of doing this kind of thing, and maybe they're more passionate just as a collector than they are about making a few extra views out of it. And I feel like there's going to come a point down the road where the only people who have access to or still hold on to unopened, sealed products like this from, vintage products, especially from, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the 90s, are going to be people with a lot of money. Or, like these things will be in a case somewhere or in a vault or, a safe or something like that. It'll be an investment, which, again, I understand. but more so than a passion thing. And I feel like the advice I gave him was hang on to it yourself. Perhaps get it graded. I'm not a huge fan of like PSA and these others. I prefer AGS because the computerized AI grading is more consistent and trustworthy in my opinion. But when it comes to packs, they don't do that yet. And so I told him, I was like, here, look at PSA. They will grade packs for you. And then your booster pack is sealed in a plastic slab with a rating on it, like what the quality of this thing is. And it's unopened. It's protected in there forever if you don't open it. And I think that it's important for those of us who may not make a ton of money, may not get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of views, to sometimes just hold on to some of these things and preserve them for the future in the hands of like average people instead of big time influencers. So Call of Duty is back at it again with Warzone. I just recently got back into playing a little bit because a friend of mine started getting online and we could do some duos, and of course the solos playlist is back here in season 4, and so I got to play a little bit, but I feel like they keep altering the experience of this game in ways that I don't enjoy, unfortunately. The new map, I forget what it's called, but it's not bad. I see what they're doing with it. They're trying to make it more urban, so what they're doing is more buildings, street level stuff. It's more condensed and has more elevation instead of being a large map that has different, I guess you'd call them biomes. You have like desert and things like that, rocky areas, and then city. But they've shrunk the map, and yes, they cut the player count in half from 150 to 75, I believe. So I know what they're trying to do, and that is they're trying to decrease the time between combat. I forget what the exact term is, but I don't know. Part of the draw of a battle royale, especially one like Warzone, because I like Warzone better than any of the others I've played. I've played Fortnite. I've even played Fortnite no build, and it's okay. It's fun, but it feels extremely easy. And I've played Apex Legends. Cannot stand that one. I've also played other shooters like Battlefield 2042. I like that one, but it's not a battle royale. And here's the thing. I specifically like battle royales for the kind of survival aspect of it. That you loot what's out there on the map, and that's what you got to use, at least I guess until loadouts and other items arrive. And you're constantly in a different area. You're constantly having to adapt to wherever you've ended up this time. It could be completely different buildings. It could be a completely different room, a different alley, a different street, whatever it is. The scenario changes basically every time you play. I've always liked the fact that you don't spawn in, die, reset, spawn in, die, reset. That's what I play a battle royale for. That's what I played Warzone for, is the ability to get into the match, to have a little bit of time to get situated, or at the very least, even if you have an encounter like pretty quickly early on, there's such a large area to cover that you're not just parachuting in, having to kill somebody or fight somebody right away, and then the next building you run into, there's somebody in there. I understand there's probably an appeal of that to some people, but go play team deathmatch or something. I don't know. Like, they keep altering this game to decrease the time to engagement, is what it feels like. I understand that they cut the player count in half, but the map feels considerably smaller than even the last map that we played, and it's not as fun. I still have fun playing Warzone. I still have clips that I put up in YouTube Shorts, but I just wish they wouldn't screw with the formula so much. There are positive things that can be added to this game. I've talked about them in a previous commentary video I did. Some of it has happened. They started adding like fog, and at the end of last season there was like sandstorms on the map, which I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. But now I just feel like I'm parachuting in, and then I have to fight somebody, and I either die and have to reset like right away, or I have to get into combat, and then I'm left like running around trying to dodge other people like right away. I like this idea that you were diving into some sort of big open battlefield and trying to survive, trying to scavenge, and then the encounters you had were a little more thought out instead of, so impromptu. So anyways, just my thoughts. Like I said, I still have fun. I am a fan of Warzone. I've always been big into playing this since it came out, but I just feel like you do a little too much to try and increase the action while you decrease the other aspects of the game, and I don't like that so much. Thanks again for checking out Weekly Takes. If you enjoyed this minicast, please subscribe to the channel for more, check out the playlist for past episodes, leave a like, and if you have anything to say, any feedback, definitely leave a comment, and we'll see you next week.